Hello, everyone. So it's been a while since I've been on here filming just a regular episode, but going back to my roots. Today's episode is going to be about my experience from when I was in AA. But before we get to that, y'all, I went through a crazy Wuthering Heights phase, and I know this might not make sense, but I was like, you know how fun it would be if I just like instead of ever turning on lights, because I'm a motherfucker that if I don't have to turn on a light, I won't. So I got this little candle. It was a thing where you put a little tea light in the bottom of this warmer and it heats up a wax thing on top. And I was like, essentially that's the same thing, right? It ain't. It would heat up like a furnace. So then me and one of my best friends were out shopping the other day, and I was like, you know what? I was like, let me really focus in on this, and I did, and I found that. What? And then yesterday, my dad's girlfriend has a bunch of like cool silver stuff, and we looked it up. And apparently, this is like worth like a lot of money, but she said I can use it as long as I don't fuck it up. Which I mean, this would be hard to fuck up. And I really take care of things. So but yeah, drinking my little Celsius out of it. But yeah, I just thought that was cool. It has a little dragon hanging on the edge. You see it. Anyways, I just thought that was fun. My time in AA. Well, let me just say, it was around 2019 when I realized I really had like a serious problem. Um, and I had already been drinking heavy before that, but alcoholism was really a word that I never really gave any real weight to, you know? And so one day, not one day, I was living in Austin at the time, and Austin, Texas. Shout out Texas. And I decided that I was gonna move back to Oklahoma, but to OSU, Stillwater territory, which is where OSU the campus is at, because that's where my best friend was going at the time. Her name is Hannah. Shout out Hannah, I love you. I was like, you know what? Very Carrie Bradshaw of me. I was like, let me pack up my shit. We're going to fucking Oklahoma. So I get to Oklahoma. I get my first ever apartment, but it was one of those like student apartments, where you have to like live with like three other people. But when I was moving in, it was outside of like school time, whatever. So I was basically living by myself in like this three-bedroom apartment. Oof, that's what got me. Anyways, I was working at a little Sprouts Market, and I met this guy because I was still underage at the time. I think I was like 19, and I met this guy on Grinder, and he was buying me alcohol for me to do things. But I'm like, it wasn't like I wasn't attracted to him. Like I was having a good time. I was having time of my life, but I was also getting my alcohol out of it. And anyways, I started spiraling really, really, really bad. And I was going to work drunk. I was having to go to the hospital for stomach issues from drinking so much in such a. I mean, it wasn't a short amount of time, but it's short enough. And so my mom, I remember one time I was on the phone with her, and I was pretty tipsy, and she told me, she was like, Dylan, you have a problem, because I'm adopted, and my mom always told us growing up, don't drink, don't use anything, because addiction runs in the family, but that doesn't really process until you fuck up, and then it starts processing like, oh, hmm. And yeah, sure enough, I fell into it, and then years and years, and finally a really bad situation happened with my ex, and that's how I ended up here with my dad, living with my dad. Love my dad. Shout out dad. And he encouraged me to join AA. Listen, I'm gonna sound dense as fuck when I say this next part. I thought you needed like insurance or something to go to AA. I thought AA was like like a medical hospital thing. Because I never really put too much thought into it. Because honestly, I never really even wanted help. I was comfortable with my sickness, and yeah. So I was like, okay, well, AA is a thing. So then I started looking up like Zoom, Zoom shit, and I ended up on my first ever AA group was this group of like 10 people, and they were all like 50, 60, 70, which no shame in that at all. Obviously, they're wise. They have all the wisdom that you need, and I appreciate that. I'm not someone who gets feedback and, get all like, oh, what the fuck? You're saying I did this wrong. You're saying blah, blah, blah. Like, I genuinely take feedback really well. So that's a blessing, first of all. Second of all, I yeah, so I ended up in that meeting and it was cool. I met like a lot of cool people that were wanting to reach out to me like one on one independently, and I was like, this is fun. This is really fun. And being like the youngest person in the group, everyone really like notices you. My thing was I didn't like to speak. I just liked to be there. And up front, I made friends with this guy who was in the group. Like I said, and he's older than my dad, I think, but he would go on to become my first sponsor. But anyways, before he was my sponsor and I was fresh in the group, he was really telling me, "Hey, you need to share, really open up." And I did. And sharing never really did much for me. It was more so me listening to other people's stories that affected me. Because not in like a shitty way, not in a mean way, but like looking at all these older people, fighting for their fucking lives from this addiction. I was like, my biggest goal in life personally is to be a dad. So I was like, I can't be a dad and, also simultaneously be at this age continuing to fuck up my life, right? Well, so I'm in that group, life goes on. I'm getting jobs, losing jobs because I keep relapsing, missing work, you know the drill. And then I tried to make a thing of it because I started to realize I was kind of sliding out of it. So I was like, let me make this like a whole experience. So I would go to this little park we have next to us at my place now. And I would go there, bring like an apple. I'd sit down on the bench. I hate being outside, by the way. I'm not an outside person. If I could be inside all day, I know that's bad, but fuck it. But anyway, so I'd be outside like fucking fighting for my life against like these bugs and be hot, but I'd be like, you know what? At least I'm trying to make this click. Cuz like I said, it was mostly just me pulling from other people's stories, but I was also being really pushed to share. And from that came how do I say this so it doesn't make it sound like fuck it. Basically, I would be sharing. I would share, and people would notice me in the group, and they would, shout me out or whatever, whatever you call it in AA. And they would always, every single one of them, never failed. Start off with, "Oh, when I was your age, I was, I was getting drunk. I was killing my family. I was going to all this shit." And I was like, "Fuck." I was like, "Damn. Well, you know what? I'm literally like at that point, I was like, what, 22." So I was like, uh, I don't know, 23. But I was like, damn, sorry. Sorry I'm so young, I guess. Like I said, I know this sounds bad and it's coming off maybe bad. I'm not sure because haven't watched this back yet, obviously. But I just was a little bit put off by that. But, that wasn't really what got me completely off of that train. Like I said, I really was trying. Like, eventually, that guy I was talking about earlier who became my sponsor, he brought up, and like, he let me know what a sponsor and a sponsee was. And then he brought up me possibly being his sponsee because he had only had one other sponsee before. And he was a great guy. Great, great guy. So yeah, I picked it up with him, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I was really into it at first. I was really into it. I would say what AA did most for me was bring me back to like my faith, which I'm forever grateful for that. So reiterating, I'm not talking shit. My faith in God, but because that's another heavy thing that they have over there. Like you need to believe in something higher than yourself, because alcoholics can be very selfish people and think that they have the answers for everything when they do not, unfortunately. So I was like, all right, fuck it, let's go. And we did it. And you know how many times I've started my steps and haven't finished them. Fuck. Um, so we started doing my steps, and to answer my own question, 3 times. Well, 4 times. So like all this was going on, I was like sober for like a month, and I started like drinking again. And a whole situation happened with my dad where I got like blackout drunk, and I was like trying to fight him. Essentially, um, it's when I black out that things get really bad, and I was blacking out a lot. And so my dad had to call the cops, and it was just like a whole thing. And I have a crazy story I'll share another time because this is specifically about, my time in AA. And there was one night where my dad basically was like, you need to admit yourself somewhere, because I was still going through the motions about everything that happened with my ex, coming to terms with the fact that I was the one that caused it, coming to terms, drinking on it was essentially my solution for that. And that's why I ended up going to inpatient. I would I would not send my worst enemy to a pro. I mean, if it's a good program, yeah. But the one I went to, what the? They tried to. There was this lady doctor who was being really nice to me, and then I was like, after spending like literally like 7 hours in there laying in my bed, I was like, fuck it, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, sure, I learned my lesson. And so I went, and then the lady was like, yeah, sign right here. And then this guy who was standing behind her, who also worked there, he was like, oh, if you sign that, you get denied. We're like legally allowed to keep you here for like another 3 weeks. So basically, just sucking off that insurance money. And I was like, ooh. So I paid my time, I paid my dues, I did all my shit. And not long after that, I was in rehab. Shout out rehab. I liked rehab. I really pulled the most from it, but god damn, if you want to see the most selfish, immature, grown ass men, 30 years you're young, you go to fucking rehab. I have never seen more fits thrown in my life just because we had to go to bed at a certain time, had to wake up at a certain time. We weren't allowed to do certain things after a certain time hit, like 8, 9. You would think you were cutting off their fucking balls and turning it into a necklace and wearing it around your neck. They were livid. But anyways, I was having the time of my life. Everybody loved me there because I was nice. I was sharing my skincare with people. Whoever fucking asked me, I was like, yeah, fuck it. Let's get you into this. It's a good little routine to get. I was having fun. I also picked up smoking cigarettes again because at first I was like, no, I'm not gonna smoke cigarettes. That's gross. And then we went outside, and one of the nurse ladies, the people that worked there had a vape on her, and I was like, what? We could have brought vapes. What? And then they were like, no, you can't bring vapes. And I was like, what? And then everybody kept offering me a cigarette, and I was like, I was so posh. I was like, I don't want that shit. And then I think it was like after week one, I was hitting everyone's cigarette. But like I said, everyone was cool there. I loved rehab. It was great. And the whole point of that tying into AA is I had my sponsor would come visit me literally every visitation day that we had, every Wednesday I believe it was. And then there was a woman in that group that had taken a liking to me, and I'd taken a liking to her. She was really cool, and she came to visit me and brought me a book and a journal. Me and her, we kind of fell off though, because I would call her while I was drunk, and she made it very clear that I shouldn't be calling her while I was drunk, and I was being very disrespectful by calling her when I was drunk. And I can't really hide my drink. Well, don't let me lie. But anyways, I was like, okay, whatever. That I loved rehab. I loved rehab. Would I go again? If I had to, but I would love to go back to the same place I was. I was in a state-funded rehab facility, so I didn't have to pay anything. It was they get a bad rap, which I understand. If you go to the wrong one, I get it. But the one I went to, I made the most of it. Fuck it. And I'm pretty sure I wasn't supposed to have half the things I had with me in that facility, but the lady who was doing it, it was like that wasn't even her job to like go through all of your stuff. So she was going through my stuff, and she was like, "I think you can keep this." And I was like, "Fuck! I should have brought my fucking vape. I didn't know how easy it was to sneak shit in there." Don't take notes from that. Don't sneak shit into rehab. You're in there for a reason. But anyway, so I got out of rehab, and it's kind of a blur from there. I was doing good. I was working a job at this little dog place where I was staying overnight, watching dogs, working all day, playing with dogs. You would think I am a dog person. I'm definitely a cat person. But it was fun. I like dogs when it's other people's dogs. Anyway, so I'm like, you know, doing doing what I needed to do to stay sober, and I continued to relapse. And finally, my sponsor one day told me, "Hey, like I don't." It was a little. It was not long after he took me to my first in person where I got one of my coins, my very first coin that I ever got. Now I have an abundance, but my very first coin, and people were clapping for me. I felt like I was Taylor Swift. I was like, felt like I needed to sing. You know what I mean? But no, I took that shit and I was like, you know what? Yeah, it was a good feeling. It was a really good feeling. But anyways, I kept relapsing, and my sponsor was like, "Damn, well, maybe I'm not doing it for you, which, because I wasn't going to be the one to call it off. Oh, it sounds like we were dating. We were not dating. But I didn't want to be the one that was like, well, because he wasn't a bad sponsor. It was me. It was me. Um, so I was like, okay. But there was another guy in our group that had been sober for a very long time, and he was also gay. So, worlds collide, things were clicking in my sponsor's head, and he's like, I want to recommend you to this guy. And he did. And then, life happens, and um, one second. Okay, my best friend Ari Cash called me, and I drop everything for her. That's my girl right there. So, anyways, that's why it's like a random cut in this video. But, anyways, so I think the last thing I was saying was I got in touch with the gay guy that my old sponsor was recommending to me, and he was really cool. And I started fucking up again, and I ended up getting kicked out. And I one of my most vivid memories I have is I was so fucked up, and I was fucking this guy from Grindr, right? And he was like over, and we were watching like American Horror Story, and then my dad was like, "You need to leave," because I was drunk, and he could tell. And he just told me like, "Dylan, I won't get mad, or I won't do this or do that as long as you're honest with me about being drunk." But I wasn't honest with him that night, obviously, and I made a little comment that really pissed him off. He's like, "You need to get out." And so, my reaction to that was going back in my room and having sex with this guy and then watching American Horror Story. And he was blowing up my phone like, "Dylan, you need to leave, you need to leave." And I was like, well, I guess that's that. So I was trying to find a hotel, but I live right next to a stadium, and there was a baseball game, and I couldn't find it, like a cheap, well, couldn't find. I was also drunk, so I was like, trying as hard as I could, drunk. I ended up staying at La Quinta, and paid like $600 because they only had a suite available, and I don't remember them telling me it was going to be that much until I got there. And then I just swiped my card, and that was like all the money I had in my bank, and it was for one night only. And me and this guy, I begged him to stay with me, and he did because I didn't want to be alone. And then I remember I woke up in the morning to him just like getting ready and like leaving, and I was like, oh, and he was like, well, I have to go, and I was like, I get it. And he left, and then I ended up just doing the nastiest thing you do at a hotel. I took a bath at a hotel, and I was just like laying in the bath, and I just remember just never feeling more defeated in my life. And after that, I was living out of a Motel 8, and ended up moving into a sober living house, which was a big blessing. Um, and I was only there for maybe a month before my dad told me I could come back home because I came to stay, because you can't stay overnight when you're in a sober living house, but over the holidays you're able to. And this was around the holiday time, like Thanksgiving time. So when Christmas came around, my dad said, yeah, come stay the night. And when I came over, he had like washed my sheets and like cleaned up my room and everything. It was so nice. And he had told me like, Dylan, I'm sorry, but I can't let you come home. And I was like, okay. And then the next day on Christmas, he told me I can come home. I was like, what? I was so happy. Yeah, I got my shit packed. So I got everything ready to go, and I came back home. And while this was all happening, I was simultaneously working on my first. I think I made it to like step 3 with my sponsor. And then once I got back home here, I ended up going to an outpatient program, and again, that taught me more than anything, honestly, that speaking about my issues doesn't really do much for me. It's listening to other people's things that they've been through, and like their solutions to things. But anyways, I started slacking. I started not responding to my sponsor, and I also started taking medication around this time. Zoloft, shout out, sponsor me. And it changed my life for the better. And I found a routine for myself. Basically, I went to work every day. I come home, take a bath, still my routine. But I am jobless right now. But I would like go to work every day, come home, take a bath, and just do whatever the fuck I wanted in my bedroom. And I didn't go out anywhere unless it was to the movies. And that's how my life has been for the past 2 years. I don't ever go out besides to the movies. Um, so yeah, AA just kind of fell off for me. My sponsor was trying. Oh, he was trying. I felt bad because I was his first sponsee. And I just it, I even got I forget what it's called, but he took me to a river with it sounds like a cult with one of his old sponsor and some of his AA friends, and they did the thing where they where you what is it called? I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but it was definitely 6 in the fucking morning. I remember that for sure. And we were outside, the sun wasn't even up, and it was like some kind of prayer, I think. Like, I think I had to get on my knees, and then they prayed, and then something else happened. I know, I sound like an asshole not remembering, but it was a cool moment. You know what I mean? I felt like I was like indoctrinated. I felt like I was like that bitch. Like, for real, I was like down. Felt like Taylor Swift. But yeah, AA just never clicked for me. I'm a really big routine guy. I love a good routine. As long as I have a good routine, I'm happy. But AA just never found its way into my routine. And, I tried to join other groups, all of this through Zoom. And, on Zoom, they have to be really careful about, because there's people that will get on there and just say crazy shit, just to cause issues for people genuinely trying to get help. And so they would, understandably be like, oh, you have to turn your camera on, you have to speak or whatever. And I was like, fuck me. And it just, I didn't like it. And I'm not a shy person. You know what I mean? Look at my channel. Like, I'm not a shy person. Do I go out a lot? No. Am I very social? No. But when I have to be like at work, or when I do go out like with my best friends and do something, I'm a really approachable guy. I'm a really nice guy. I talk to anybody and everybody. I'm not like weird, you know what I mean? But it was just, integrating that into something that I held so dearly to my heart, which was my sobriety. It wasn't bending to what I needed. So, because what I want and need are two very different things. And what I was needing was to, I guess, essentially come out of my shell. But I, it never offered anything for me to do that. I mean, and looking back, I could have definitely gone harder, tried harder. I mean, you can always try harder, be better at something. So it's not completely off the table for me. Things would have to get pretty bad again for me to consider it. But as of right now, I've found my own peace, and I've found a way to protect my own peace and keep my sobriety strong. And I never thought I would be able to do that. And there's a lot of, when I mentioned earlier how the adults in AA, they would, always be like, oh, you're so young. When I was this, comparing them to me, I would just be like, well, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe, I started so late, 18, but still, you got motherfuckers drinking since they were 12. And I was like, since I started so late, and, like, maybe I'm just I'm not an alcoholic, but I just, I drink too much. And if I learned how to handle it, no, that's how all of my relapses have begun and ended. So I had to come to terms with I am an alcoholic, whether someone considers me one or not. And I have to recognize and stay in my lane and not convince myself that I'm not based off of what other alcoholic people were saying. But so that kind of put that in my head for a while, for a very long time, for years, that I was like, wow, maybe I'm not. And it all really stemmed from my first AA group. And AA, it's a great program for people that actually blend into it very nicely. Like I've said this entire video, it didn't click for me. But also, like I said, I could have tried harder. And I just found a way to handle my sobriety on my own. When I start getting antsy, I clean, and I learned that in AA, from a lady. She would go crazy clean. And that's what I do. That's what I do. I clean like a motherfucker. I grab my vape, my trusted vape, and I go to town. I clean the baseboards. But I clean. What else do I do? I'll sit in the bath. I'll just run a bath and just sit in it. I'll, you know, try to make a fun little drink like a tea or something. But yeah, so AA is a great program for the people that it works for. I'm not trying to make myself sound like somebody like, oh, I have it all figured out, like I found a way around AA or whatever, because that's not what this video is about. The video is about how AA just did not work for me, personally. But and for a while I really thought AA was the end all of, like, getting sober. It's not. It's not. There's other options out there, and I think that's important to say as well, and for other addicts to know. It's not the only option, and it never will be the only option. It's the biggest option. It's the most fruitful option. The option that has a lot of success stories. But there's other avenues that you can go down. What they are, I don't know. You know what's crazy? I really think my meds put me in my place, because I used to overthink everything. Like, I really think if it wasn't for my meds, I'd still be trying to work shit out in AA. But my meds really calmed my mind, pushed everything away, stopped me making me think 24/7 about how shitty I was as a person, and honestly made me stop feeling like I had to prove something to anyone. Because at the end of the day, we have nothing to prove to anyone except ourselves. You know what I mean? So as long as, for alcoholics, I feel like it's definitely a long game in that sense, because we fuck up so much, and we have to be able to show to ourselves and specific people, i.e., my dad, my mom, like, that we are better and that we can be better than that person, and that takes time. That's a game of time that we're playing. You have to let time pass, and you have to let your actions speak for you, not your words. But yeah, you know, like I said a million times, AA, it's an option, and it's a great program for the people that it works for, but it's not the only option for people that are feeling like they don't really fit in, or people that are feeling like, oh fuck, well, this doesn't work, like, what am I going to do, and like, I'm fucked forever. You're not fucked. you know um you just have to find what works for you, and it's a process, and you're going to fuck up along the way, but you know what, I call that character development. Anyways, I really appreciate anyone who took the time to watch this video. I have 3 more videos to film tonight. I'm excited. It's gonna be another all-nighter. I pulled a 48-hour the other day. I was up for 48 hours. Um, and I didn't. Well, I know that's bad for you, because like, your body has to like rest or whatever. But then my mom decided to drop the lore that, like, it's like it can make you go crazy, and I was like, what? And then my best friend was like, yeah, it makes you lose brain cells, and I was like, what? Because I only have so many of those left. God damn, and they're fighting every goddamn day. But anyways, an all nighter never hurt anyone as long as you end up getting your sleep. Um, don't take notes from that. Strike that from the record. But I love you all, and you're not alone. You're not alone. Um, it's easy to feel alone, especially when you do specific things and get yourself into specific situations. You kind of isolate yourself, like, well, there's not one person that's not going to judge me, or there's not a person out there that won't judge me for what I did when I was fucked up. There's not a person out there who could even try to understand, if your situation is very shitty. I was very blessed to be able to build a relationship with my dad while simultaneously figuring out what works to keep me sober personally. So, yeah, I know there's a lot that plays into it. I know it's very easy for someone to sit down and say, you just have to put the initiative and stuff, which you do, and I know it could be frustrating, but let me tell you, it's not impossible, and you're not alone. You're not. I promise you, you're not alone. I'm here. I'm here speaking into the void, posting these videos, because I want people to know they're not alone. I'm trying to build a safe space. I want to be able to. I know it sounds so corny, but I'm trying to build for me what I wish I had. Um, I say that after saying AA is not for me. I refuse the biggest program for sobriety, but it's not. And that's the reality of the situation. It might not be for you, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. But I love you. You are very blessed. Even if it's little things, you are very blessed, and we should remember that. Yeah. But I love you so much, and thank you for watching. And if you want to, I'm sorry, excuse me, the Celsius kicking in. If you want to subscribe, go ahead. But if you don't want to subscribe, maybe just consider leaving a likey poo. That would be fun. I do album reactions on this channel as well. If you're not interested in that, maybe just stick around for my sobriety content. It's whatever the fuck you want to do, honestly. But if this is the only time I come across your channel, the only time that you hear my voice, see my face, I just want you to know that you're not alone. And I love you. There's someone out there that loves you and knows or understands, the issues and the problems you're having to face right now. You're not alone. And I want to end it on that. So I got some other stuff to do. I love y'all so much. All right, bye.